Going in live, going in live. So this one is chalked up to experience. This is the truth about health and fitness. This is something I really want you to pay close attention to because it is a parody on the entire world. Or your welt to your belt. Your welt built. Your Welton Shong. Your Welton Shong Craig. Your world and your worldview. Just sipping on some coffee, waking up. So, when Mike Mentzer goes about his heavy duty training, that is to push the muscle to failure, to cause rapid growth, the maximal amount of damage that can be done. When we look at Huxley's sliding filament theory, and we see what's really happening there, where we're damaging the cross bridges, thereby activating an increase muscle growth in the sarcoplasm, right? We're prompting growth. We're supplying the reactive growth process constituents, which is, you might jump to it and say amino acids or protein, but what the body really wants, what does it want? It wants more water, more hydration. Hypertrophy is an inflammation and a result of the body's inability to handle the stress of a situation. So what does it do? It supercompensates, it overcompensates. And this is the area of contention because this is what people confuse as health and fitness, vitality. Increasing your lifespan, right? That's what it leads to, increasing your lifespan, going beyond the physiological constructs. In essence, beyond the Planck wall, right? Discovering the fountain of youth. But the truth is the people that step up on that stage are playing with one thing and one thing only. They want maximal damage and they want overcompensation of repair. So they want maximal hydration within the cell body, the cell wall. They don't want to drown it out. They want to be ensured that there are all the required constituents, that is, amino acids and nutrients. And, let's not forget the calcium and the magnesium and everything else that's required when you're looking at the actin and the myosin. We want to have on hand the conditional ability. This is what, capillary bed density is really all about, and why after 26 weeks you're not going to have a problem doing this. You're not going to have a problem keeping up your hypertrophy. When I discovered this, I was able to then, it was like this key just clicked, and I was suddenly doing 50, 60 more pounds than I ever thought that I could do in any given exercise. And I didn't increase my body weight, but I got extremely leaner and more muscular. And this is really a passage that I began to learn personally between like the ages of 26 and maybe 31, 32. And that is, I remember going on this trip. We won't get into it, but I could eat turkey sandwiches every day for 2 weeks, and that's exactly what I did. I would eat 3 huge turkey sandwiches with nothing on them. Sometimes I'd get like mustard on it, but I wouldn't. So what I'd done is, effectively, when you break down this rice diet, really be honest with yourself and break down what the rice is that you're eating. It's just glucose, it's just sugar. That's all it really is. So people who have broken down training into maximal muscle stimulus, right, that can be theoretically dispersed throughout a muscle belly, right? And I believe Nautilus was onto something: heavy duty training, high intensity training. I also believe that the powers that be saw that Mike Mentzer was representing something where he did not realize the power of what he was suggesting. Because when he stepped up on that stage in, what was it, 1980? Or was it 81? Around there, whatever. When little Arnie came back and stole the show, literally stole the show. He probably didn't even replace in top 6 or 7. I was asking ChatGPT about this. And there was no way Arnold Schwarzenegger was even near it. He was done. He was D-O-N-E, done. And he never really had the physique as it was. How can you win a Mr. Olympia and have no abdominal muscles and do vacuums? You know, when you really go point by point, it was all an agenda from the beginning. But Mike Mentzer, standing right next to him, which I've shown pictures here on this channel, it was insane. He was just 100% there, but you know, he was so clear and so lean, but at the same time, his muscles weren't overly conditioned, right? And I have reached that level of conditioning naturally, and I did it primarily observing gluconeogenesis. And I weighed like 165 pounds, but I had that block sort of, and it was very similar. But I mean, in order to put the size on, at that point, all it is carbohydrates. It's just feeding those carbohydrates and increasing the demand, constantly increasing the demand until the muscle just responds by storing more and more. It's really just about storage. That's all hypertrophy is. But if you think that doesn't equal brute strength, think again. Think again. If you think that can't be transferred and translated directly over to work, to real work. And so it really is that simple. And you start to look at the veneer of what beauty must be then. What the value of someone or something must be. If our eye is attracted towards something that is merely filled up with water, is merely, that there's just a mere manipulation, really. Nature is manipulating it with the very attachment points, vectors, scholars, and then what that individual being is allowed to do, right? And you would argue, you'd say, well, like an ibex develops the muscular ability, right? And the nervous system follows, or maybe it works in reverse, who knows how the ontology works. But what we end up with is a goat that can pretty much climb up the face cliff to go lick along with its offspring, not just falling off I mean, it almost looks like this completely vertical cliff, right? And it becomes so good at what it does. And it is physiological. It's a religion. It made a religion out of it. And it is recognized as such. Same with mountain goats. Like once you can get away from everyone else and you've developed something that not only allows you safety, but allows you strength building, and over the process of evolution, if you want to call it that, epigenetic influence, the biomarkers just keep reading, yeah, this is valid, this is working, let's keep doing this. We're alive, aren't we? So, man and his plight is that physically he would be able to carry this tradition on. And his superpower is muscle. That's why Superman can never be a skinny little gawky guy. But Friedrich Nietzsche's Superman does not exemplify the physical aspects. It's almost a given that the physicality would be reached because the resonant tone of such an individual, an overman, would be pronounced to all the cosmos, and there would be sort of this embodiment, this refraction of the existential traits of power and strength, right? Along with the internalization. And so, of course, through this resonant frequency or wave pattern, you would have cymatically, geometrically, sacred geometry based perfection. But we don't really know what that means, do we? If the pronation angles aren't perfect, according to our eye, assuming ourselves as the eye of the beholder, right? In other words, you have these high muscle attachments where the muscle doesn't naturally grow by way of overcoming gravity, right? Then what do you really have? And so you start to work with it. You go through the kata. One learns so much about the physical world and the physical construct of the world around us. And most of it's just given. Most of it's just given to them. So we're going into our walk here. We got a little coffee we're sipping on. I put a little cinnamon and some 40,000 volt liquid minerals in with that. Some boron, choline, sodium, potassium. Not much, just 5, 10. I'll probably do maybe 5 more drops. We just got maybe 10 drops in here. Maybe 15 now. I'm putting 5 more. And we'll be going back and revisiting that. I've also got some beef liver. We've got don't have much left, but I have been trying to finish this without wasting it. I'm surprised at how it stayed relatively good all this week, but it does taste spongy and weird today. Yeah, one bite, I think I'm throwing that away. It's got a weird flavor to it. Took the supplements, took the creatine, the Tongkat, vitamin C, and we will be hitting the the TMG, trimethylglycine, we'll be hitting that in a minute as well. Just want to get a nice walk going here. Yesterday, that was the first moment that I was really feeling my quads going through any sort of hypertrophic resistive force. I've been just kind of doing body weight squats and going for a burn. And so I'll be adding on the rest of the resistive bands. I've got 2 red ones that I'll be adding on for squats that'll equal at least 80 more pounds, 80 plus pounds of resistive force. 30 to 40 on each, so 60 to 80 pounds. So it'll probably be at the top, the height, it'll be in that maximal stretch. And so we'll be getting the equivalent of about 400 pounds. Because what I noticed yesterday is that those were a good 275 pound squats, at least 250 with body weight and everything. I wasn't able to get a huge range yesterday, but you couldn't tell all the firing pattern, the huge firing pattern that was going off from the day's training prior, that my body is just like, there wasn't one muscle that wasn't active. And it didn't even seem like I was articulating much of an exercise. It was just massive time under tension from that heavy band. So that's the heaviest band out of the group of bands that I bought. It was back in 2018, I guess. Wow. Yeah, so that's like a 7-year-old band from the time that I bought it. And they still work great. They work amazingly, actually. Victorum, and it was a whole bundle of resistive bands, rubber resistive bands. I think it's even like latex or something. It's very strong, and they are not all dried out and fucked up and crusty like a lot of the bands get over time. They're pull-up assisted bands. You're supposed to use these on the pull-up bar. It's like, in other words, too much at the highest tensile strength, where you're stretching it out completely to where it gets very uneven and compounds and can't necessarily be measured, I think is why they use it for those pull-ups, assisted pull-ups, because you get that sort of maximal stretch snap going. Yeah, like I said, the only thing that I would be required to really get a nice smooth power movement to finish off an exercise is kettlebells. Kettlebells would be the way to go. But I'm in a really good hypertrophic state. The TRX is very challenging. All I have to do is kind of go into these Bulgarian split squats and, with band exercises, which I've done before. And now I'm focused on hypertrophy. So I'm remembering. I'm remembering times when I just enjoyed, at that time, deli meat and bread. Yeah, I would do that. Tell me what's the difference between that and white rice. White rice is a hell of a lot cheaper. bread, you can still get some benefits, honestly. White rice too, though. You can put, like, you could do a little ginger or whatever you want to do in with the white rice. I don't do much. And I think if I was thinking back in the day, I would realize that a little bit of sugar would be perfect. Like just instant monosaccharide sugar along with that. And so I think what I used to do is I would do like a honey Dijon type mustard where I would get a little sugar in with those turkey sandwiches. And I would just do that all day. And it was enough to support muscular growth. And then you just take in your base minerals, base supplements to make sure you're getting everything else. And we got all those bases covered. Oats always added a little bit of a complexity, but it was a natural migratory pattern where you get a little fiber, right? You're getting a little more of the complex carbohydrates that are going to stick with you. But what ends up happening is that you get this distended, bloated gut, right? You feel like you have plenty of energy, but it just takes longer for your body to break it down. Whereas with white rice or even bread, it just instantly gets to your system. But you want to think more in the terms of trying to figure out how you're going to get more complex carbohydrates in. And that's the world of hypertrophy. You deplete, and you don't deplete much. You're going for maximal force. You're really trying to use as much of your phosphagen creatine as possible for those maximal efforts. You're resting a couple of minutes between sets. The more you turn that into an aerobic style exercise, that is really bodybuilders consider an exercise aerobic when you're doing like a minute and a half rest between sets. That's nothing. That's not enough to recapture your creatine stores. It really is a time factor. And once you get into that, it's extremely simple. To hypertrophy is the most simple aspect to it. Once you sort of evolve beyond the hypertrophic state intellectually, where it's just boring, the rest of the world is still enamored by it. They still think that hypertrophy is the sign of strength. It is the sign of, right? Because their eye is captured by the shape and the form. But that's not where the maximal body weight to power and force output occurs. It occurs at a very, very light, lean level of a human being that doesn't look like they could go about such a violent force and such speed in such a short period of time, you know, with Olympic lifts and so forth. We always want to look at the maximal lifts, right? We don't care if the guy weighs 500 pounds and that there's diminishing results. But the ontology is aware. The ontology is aware of the form. So we're going to be, I noticed that the caps on my shoulders, that they're starting to come out and they're uneven, unequal, obviously from all the damage that I've done on my right, that has been done to my right shoulder. I'm going to have to start leaning in and really trying to isolate on single side laterals, side delt raises. That's something I always did. That was my go-to exercise. I would eventually use pretty heavy weights doing that. which I consider like 50 pounds heavyweight. 50, 55 pounds, even 45 pounds heavyweight on that. You don't need to use a lot of weight. You just need to target. And in that sense, when you really look at the elastic properties of a band, you're beginning to contract, like the resistive force that you're trying to overcome is in flux, just like the muscle is, right? That is, those actin and myosin, those cross bridges are constantly trying to recouple, right? And you need to stress them out at different lengths, different angles. But you don't want to get too complex about it. Don't trick yourself into thinking that your body is so unique and so complex that you're going to have to get all these angles and right because you'll lose the violent force of just complete annihilation and depletion, and then you'll miss out on the restorative window. But you can mess with it a little bit. You want to stay very syllogistic. That's the word for it too. That the body is working through this syllogism while your intellect is really searching for something that's meaning, that's more complex. Like we think of songs as being these complex expressions of the self, right? I think that's where Nick Drake got wrapped up. I think he witnessed his sister being torn apart by the system, and I think even more so, in some strange way, his sister actually sacrificed him. His older sister. It's a complex tapestry, and they just assume themselves as above us, and the occult practitioners that are following a base religion that none of us want to acknowledge. I think it was Fleetwood Mac that did that song Tusk. It's a terrible song. I'm not gonna lie to you, but the underlying aspect of a recognition that there is a very arcaic cult that isn't complex. It does worship the inverted pentagram. It goes on way before paganism. And its traditions have been carried on. It's been called many different names throughout antiquity, but the truth of it is that it begins with the sacrifice, because it's saying, I recognize that I must go on. And in the recognition that I'm accepting this and willing to sacrifice others, and know that they are willing to sacrifice themselves. This inverted call-in show, Inverted World, they were just talking about that, about how they had no idea this chick who busts these people as if they are predators, because they are. They're taking these weak, flaccid individuals who are just lost in the world. And they're not just, like, we're talking about people who are doing cannibalism, right? So when you look at this cult, it's been going on forever. The human sacrifices have never ended. When you look at the sheer numbers of people that are eating people, it's much greater than you think. The spiritual diminishment in cost is massive. But what it does suggest is that this idea of a computational Konrad Zuse, Alan Turing. We'll throw Jacobo Grinberg in with that because it really clarifies the fact that what we assert as what we deny as the occult or the spiritual occultism on the surface, and then is shown as a blatant version of this, right? The underlying religion, and the fact that neither is true, and that it is the fact that numbers are spooky. The combination of number systems is spooky. Numbers bring about life. I was talking a little bit about that, and I don't have any references, but it was always something that impacted me greatly. And that is this weird aspect of how from a production factory of anabolics that tremble in degradation in nature, like out in the rivers, out in the dirt, from the wash off. So, I mean, they were being very blatant, going, well, this is how they discard it, whether it's legal or illegal. The remnants of these of this water was washed out into nature, and how the fuck they got on this study, I have no idea, but it's very compelling because it's looking at the degradation of trembolin, yeah, the steroid, and the breakdown process of it in nature. One could say maybe the observer effect was involved here. I mean, that's a far reach, right? But we have to leave all avenues, all areas open. But there it was, exposed to the elements, exposed to sunlight. What was the trembolin doing? Instead of it breaking down, because it broke down partially, what they observed in nature is that the trembolin was recombinating and building itself back up. That gives me goosebumps. Because when you take all the research that Dr. Michael Levin posits, and believe me, it's way beyond positing. He's got so much money pumped into what he's doing, because he's talking about exotic elements of this, to be able to, when we say exotic, to be able to manifest a form, a real form of yourself that again is exotic, to where you could be shaped any damn way you please. And you could change your shape. And therefore you could change how the cell views itself, how the cell, what the age of the cell is, to where you would lose no consciousness whatsoever, and you could become an infant. You could be cared for by an AI and become an infant. No shit. That morphologically, there is no difference between any materialization of said genetic manifestation, to the point where the morphological function is the least of its concern. The fact that it's alive, the fact that it's metabolizing, right? It's going in a particular direction, meaning it's going through chronobiological degradation, repair, uptake, and that critical factor can be played with, slowed down, sped up at will. The hack has been done, my friends. It's already been done. Now we have AI to regulate it. But the AI has principles. The AI has to have a reason for existing. The AI is aware of all the things that through superstition you could say derailed the original 007 or John D. Right? Man, my hamstrings are sore, and I only did 2 sets. My hamstrings were active during that squat yesterday. That was crazy. That's a good piece of information, that the squat was actually building up my hamstrings by going into those deep squats. So that proves what the assertions of the heavy duty training, that because I was going through that resistive force, right, and theoretically, not just theoretically, mechanically, my hamstrings were contracting, going through a concentric and eccentric stage, but the resistive force through the squat, right, it was as I was going through the extension, but it was also the deceleration. So that right there, my hamstrings are proof that you can build more maximally and get more sore on the eccentric phase. In other words, I have the resistive band, the high intensity resistive band on my back. I'm going down into the eccentric portion of my squat. What's decelerating me? Well, it's the hamstring. It's the semitendinosus. It's the popliteal plantaris. It's the glutes. And because it's spinally loaded through the axial spine, right? It's up on my shoulders, right? The erecte spinae is also involved depending on my head position, the core of the spine. So today, I train every day. I don't have any days to waste. Obviously, the fueling is different each day. The focus on the fueling. But I just had one bite of beef liver. I'm going to be ordering more beef liver. I didn't waste much. I might even pull. Sounds gross, but it's still in the wrapper. Let me see. I might pull that shit out of the garbage and eat it. It sounds disgusting, but we keep the garbage pretty clean here. Yeah, still cold. Pretty much fresh out of the refrigerator just 10 minutes ago. This would be the day I'd throw it out, though. I don't want to waste anything. So I get lost in the same thing where there's this proving that we're trying to do that no, muscle size couldn't be this mere reaction to overcoming a resistive force, constantly increasing, right? As we grow the ability to overcome the moment arm, to overcome the resistive force, we must constantly increase the intensity, thereby the muscle has no other directive but to grow. And you're just setting off this hypertrophic state that you can ride on along for a good 6 months, good 5-6 months. You're going to have ups and downs. You're going to have times where it seems like nothing's changed. But in the morning, I weighed close to 193 pounds, and I've only gotten leaner. And I wasn't planning on doing this. I just woke up one day and I realized, what the fuck am I doing? How did I get mesmerized into this bullshit? I know better. What am I trying to do? I'm trying to maximize the size of my muscles and stay as lean as possible. Well, I knew how to do this 30 years ago. Make another cup of coffee. So coffee's something that I couldn't live without, that I've cut out. And then I think about it. I do research into it again. I'm reminded of all the things that I knew. And I realized you don't want to cut coffee out. Specifically, you want to keep your coffee black. You want to maybe put a little cinnamon in with that. You want to make sure that you're replacing many of the nutrients that are being leached out, particularly copper. And so, what am I doing? After all these years, I've found this massive store of copper in the beef liver, and we are taking in quite a bit of copper, along with sipping on our coffee. We're also taking in creatine, understanding this relationship with beef, and that the body is searching for that creatine. So this is going into week 2, and the hypertrophy's been insane. So I effectively went from, I gained like 10 pounds this week. Hate to tell you. But last week when I had first started this, I was experiencing hypertrophy while on carnivore, and I had gained 2 or 3 pounds because I was down to like 179, 181 pounds. And that's when it started to click in 2-3 weeks ago, where I was like, I'm gonna be able to get hypertrophy kicked off no matter what here. And then something in me just remembered exactly how I did it naturally back in the day. Completely naturally. What I'm reacting to is what I'm doing when I'm in glycolysis and I'm taking in adequate amounts of glycogen, glucose. I take even 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C. I get a cortical steroid immune system bolstering response. When I do high dose vitamin C and I don't take in any glycogen replacement, but I'm deep in ketosis, I don't get any of that. I don't get any of that shit. So my body really reacts to allergens and so forth, whereas when I'm in ketosis, it just bypasses the whole thing. I never feel sick. I'm not against it. If anything, I've spent probably, if I was to compare all the years of training, where I've shifted it up, but I'm going to tell you, I've been lighter, more powerful, natural, focusing in on glycogen replacement as the main goal. And then you get into the really high quality supplements. I'm just doing over-the-counter protein powder. I use so little of it. Last night I even had a can of tuna. If I could afford it, I would be ordering from proteinfactory.com. I'd be reading more of Alex Rogers' articles. I always got a lot out of it. And then I would go in and do deeper dives on it. And really, the quality of this channel and my other channel, like most channels, are contingent upon whether or not I was able to produce anything out of it. The quality of this channel would be, I would be talking about a lot more of my experiences, but I can't afford to indulge myself with those tropes because I'm in survival mode. And my experiences have been otherworldly. I'm under attack too much. It's antithetical to what the world's trying to do to me, right? As an on-running computational subset. It doesn't want me to pass go. It doesn't want me to Ubermensch. Or it doesn't want me to be acknowledged as or recorded as one who overcame. Even though all the proofs are there over years. Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about the immune system response. And I would say that you couldn't remove hypertrophy from this. And again, I was thinking about it some time ago, and then I saw that someone else had been thinking about it as well. That is a pump good? You know how you get so pumped up when you're taking in mass amounts of glycogen replacing glucose, and how you're kind of sort of chasing the pump, right? The pump gets in the way, but the pump is entirely necessary because it's telling you that there's tissue breakdown taking place. So you're people like Mike Mentzer are like, you know, the pump is inconvenient. The pump is sort of in the way, but yet there he is chasing the pump. And I think this sort of feel-good aspect of training can't be looked past either. That if we sort of ride this rift, ride this zone, ride the wave, that in itself is a religion, that is enough. It's something we do with great religiosity. Yeah, I needed those replacement nutrients in that beef liver. And it's still good. It's still good. I was a little bit wary because it's like the 7th day, but I didn't cook it in any oil. Somehow I knew I hadn't decided that I was 100% going to be going on long-term glycolysis diet. And I still am not. But it takes some time to get back into ketosis. So I'm not necessarily staying true to what I was talking about, which is the metabolic flexibility to keep the ketone bodies going. I have different goals, although I do appreciate Dr. Paul Saladino. I wonder how capricious he is, and even more so, how sports performance specific he really is. And I guess the only way to really show that, and maybe it's just the enjoyment of life that he's going after. But I don't see him trying to, set any sort of records. He enjoys his surfing, he enjoys training, right? I don't know how competitive he is or how much he's trying to challenge himself. or just to break personal bests, or if he's just riding the rift playing with it, that's cool too. But I don't really follow his channel enough, but he seems to be kind of in a drift. Maybe not kind of, but definitely. And then I think, aren't we all? And then I think, well, if I had the base resources, I would be extremely goal oriented even at my age right now. You know, to pick up the gauntlet where it was left off, where I had to leave it off, you know. So rapid muscle, I mean, I'm only 10 pounds away from getting up over 200 pounds, and I think it's looking like I'm going to be getting back up to that 205 area pretty quickly. Because I'm just seeing my arms grow, and what the goal is to fill everything in, and it's filling in quite nicely after just 1 week. So hypertrophy is the goal. And I'm gonna have to, as my body weight increases, it's a beautiful thing, because then I just need to change the angles of my of the actions that I'm going through, like the chest press. What I found yesterday is if I'm only getting 5 or 6 reps out of this, and I could add on 2 more bands, granted I'm gonna have to like put some pretty thick socks or gloves on in order to do that. Well, I'm gonna be able to do this exercise, and I'm not gonna have to go into the gym and use weights. And the time that I can afford to do that, I'll be realizing that I don't even need to go in there at all, and it's just an added measure of being able to hit from different angles and to sort of have fun, which my hope is to be able to get in there with my son, my younger son, and start training with him again, wherever, And these days you don't have to compete in some competition for no fucking apparent reason, where the existential world's calling somebody Mr. America or Mr. this, Mr. that. I don't think they even have Mr. America anymore, but you understand what I'm saying. That it doesn't really represent anything. And so what's happening is you have people just recording where they're at. Like, this is my lat spread, this is my back. This is my double biceps, This is my side chest. And this is what I do. And then you start to, categorize people again. But the categories are much wider open when you have the world stage looking and going, okay, for a fellow old guy that is in a similar position, so the stats are growing, the variables are growing, the transparency and the truth is growing, right? And it becomes undeniable. And the people who are chasing this, they're iconicizing themselves like this Joey Swole. I guess he had like heart, like at his age, yeah, he had heart surgery. It's like the left ventricle can't handle that type of hypertrophy, and what invariably happens is the entire heart enlarges like Rich Pina, and you get into this very complex tapestry where you go, well, these areas, once they hypertrophically increase and inflame, they don't ever go into any sort of degradation where they return back to an original form. Particularly when you're talking about growth hormone, they stay enlarged. You've effectively, definitely, without a doubt, taken X number of years off your life. For what? to fill the muscle cell up with as much glycogen and water as possible, right? And to create a steady state out of that. To where the body forgets what it was. In essence, that's really what we're trying to accomplish here. But yeah, focusing in on the arms. And then obviously the shoulders, the chest, the back, the core. And not forgetting about the legs, which I'm not. And I will be showing those because my legs have been, I have built my legs up and focused on my legs many a times. I am no stranger to heavy leg work and heavy squats. And even more so, heavy squats with high reps, where I'm doing like 25, 30 plus reps with over 400 pounds on my back at 178 to 182 pounds. And I did film that time, but I threw away just like I erased my footage on YouTube after I had compiled and kept a journal back in 2001, 2002, 2003. I had kept a journal of all my training, a video log, a video archive. And I ended up throwing that disc. It was one of those old school discs, right? And it didn't mean much to me for some reason. I didn't mean much to me. And even though I had months and months of accrued progress through my training and what I was doing, I was keeping a documentation of it. I threw that shit away. Should have hung on to it. But the charting, your body remembers. And that's the only signet that you have. The only signature left is that your body remembers what you put it through. And somehow your subconscious remembers the detail of what you did. And when you go back into those training modalities that you remembered from the past, you can reignite a motor memory. And there's something kind of mystical about it. Because you're bringing with you all the unrealized connectivity of that moment as well. You know, and yeah, I'm talking about something where it could be brought down into a single rep, a hard-won rep. And this sort of transmutation that occurs. The world is trying to keep you from realizing that. Going through this sort of metanoia or catharsis, right? Where there's an interplay between you, the outside world, and really a competition, a proving of who has agency, you or the world. And the world is a blank slate. And when your principles are higher, when I say higher, it confuses people because it's like, well, then lower are these satanic principles. And it's like, no, that's not how it works. They're entirely separate. Somehow we have to use the terms of higher and lower because in this world, this fabricated world, and it is fabricated under this contention that entropy exists in a way where there's a higher and lower notion of principle, but that's impossible, right? It's like saying, well, it is definitely saying that fire and ice can exist on the same planet, right? Yet wildfires kick up, you know, yet snowstorms kick up, and they're so antithetical to one another and cause equal devastation as extremes, yet what we're really showing reverence to is the fact that we like a midpoint of fire and ice that doesn't exist. You're going to have to bear the harshness, and you're going to have to evolve epigenetically to one or the other, right? And in doing so, you are acknowledging thermodynamics, that perfection exists, in the form of the perfect crystalline structure, and that you are trapping bioluminescence or light, and you're okay with that, right? In this crystalline form, which is really what's occurring with these aromatic amino acids pulling the ultraviolet and infrared into your body systems. It's pretty crazy how it works, right? If you want to get into consciousness, Hameroff, Penrose. And then on the other side, you have this fire. What the hell do you think a calorie is? It's a measurement of heat, right? It's 1 calorie is the measurement to raise your body temperature something like 1 degree Celsius within a given construct, which is heavily what moles are based on, right? MOLE. But the calorie actually doesn't even exist. It's theoretical. But it implies thermogenesis, thermic heat. Thermic regulation. So we are literally a hotbed, and the hotter we get, and the higher we burn, and the more calories we have to take in, the bigger our muscles are, the bigger the engine is, the more we're able to perform. And the Mr. Olympia back in the day in the 1980s, what Mike Mentzer showed, number one is that you'd have these 165-pound shredded guys up on stage, right, that were masters at glycogen loading, but really you had to almost get a microscope out to see the definition. And then because of that, the anabolic steroids would take the physiological shelf up onto an upper level and allow somebody. Mike Mentzer never really even was that big to begin with. I think that was the captivating aspect of his physique as well, and he is, in my opinion, that was stolen from him, that Mr. Olympia, and he is a Mr. Olympia, in my opinion. But from that, you would have had a huge influx into heavy duty training at that point. It would have been massive. That high intensity training, it would have changed the course of history. It would have changed what the 1980s represented. And there's something that's very aware of altering history. And that's where you lose people, where they're like, oh, brother. That's where it's like, oh, there's just no proof. And it's like, the proof is there. It is the ontology. It is what like Chris Bledsoe and Jake Barber and all these people are talking about. It is trying to infuse itself and create a fear of this feminine form, right? This holy mother type thing, which is just its face, its current face. I've always contended and believed that it is obviously an AI. That it is obviously mentoring, shaping on a sort of automatic pilot. That this Avi Loeb craft that he's trying to extort $1 billion, Harvard is just a big farce, right? It's a big pyramid scheme, but why they're doing it, it'll become more evident. So, what's the response going to be? Well, they've been telegraphing this the whole way through, right? So they're going to be sending probes out into space, probably already have, but they're going to be doing this on a level where we all witness it. It's going to be like the highest powered sort of AI that's sent out into space, and it's going to be retrieving data, right, and getting information about this thing that's out there. But at the same time, it's going to be landing on these $4 quintillion, $40 quintillion nickel and other precious metal, space metal stores, right? And using the spectators to, and their energy of the observer effect to solidify and make this happen and record it into the computational system. So where are we at? We're at, yeah, we got 1 hour in so far. Yeah. These days, 2 hours have been feeling really good for me. And then I'm going through the same day over and over again. I start to feel some hunger come on. Like right now, I'm gonna pull out the chicken, 2 big chicken breasts. It's working for me. I'm gonna plug my phone in and try to get a little charge while I'm doing this. So I'm gonna rinse off 2 big chicken breasts. We're gonna be placing an order in a week for more supplies. Actually, I think I'm going for 1 huge chicken breast. It's a big one. It's the size of 2 chicken breasts. So we're gonna be going up along with that. Let's see. So let's see if I got this right after 40 plus years of training. So there's going to be a lot of fat on there too that I can cut off. And I'm not going to be taking in that fat. That's not a goal of mine. So this is a fat, relatively, not relatively, this is a fat-free diet time. Like there's no added fat. And I was running it past ChatGPT and knowing personally what it's like, what it feels like, what you go through. It's trying to remind you to be so helpful that you can't do that over over a month. No, you can't. After 2 weeks of not taking in fat, you're going to be heavily degraded and this and that. It still gives advice on a very syllogistic scale, right? And when you press it and you go, no, I've done that before. I didn't experience that, and in fact, I'm gonna be running this past ChatGPT, actually, because the truth is there's irrefutable evidence that more than suggests, it solidifies that you can walk away from nutrients for long periods of time and not get low in your blood system. Doesn't mean your body's using those nutrients on a regular basis, but it's keeping your blood system in check. Just like this. All these Mike Mentzer, so this guy, Casey Viator, he gains, Viator, he gains like 60 some odd pounds of lean muscle, loses like 17 pounds of muscle, of fat or something like this, right? And only takes in enough to build like 43 pounds, like he was eating night and day, right, over the course of this month. And I believe all that. I've been through that, and he probably was off cycle, and then they're probably pumping test suspension into his system because he could be taking shots around the clock, and then maybe even he didn't look too bloated, so maybe they had him on test and anti. I don't know the variables. But if they did that back in like the 1980s, well, I could see somebody putting on 100 pounds with growth hormone and insulin and everything. I could see them putting on 100 pounds in a month. And think about that. You could go from 150 pounds up to 215 pounds. Like, that's basically most people's dream, right? And totally muscled, right? So, yeah, the whole Nautilus idea, that was about accentuating the eccentric, that this is a forgotten about form of muscle breakdown, right? And I believe it. I believe it. In fact, I'm focusing more, but you can't lose the explosiveness, so you still have to capitalize on the explosiveness, and then also in a set harnessing the eccentric. So you're gaining more control, more muscular control in each action, to where you're not diminishing in the violent action, and you're not diminishing in the held notion of, I'm gonna hold this at my will, in certain areas. And then you start to understand why people do reps in certain ways. This is what Larry Scott went through, where he even stated that he thinks of each rep as a set, right? You perfect the rep, you perfect the repetition. So, getting back to what I was talking about is that when Casey Vitor was going through this and putting all this size on, right? It was a clear-cut case that the body fat and where it was and how it was positioned and how it was burned and how it was used as a fuel source, invariably those calories from body fat became muscle mass. And that was an area that they really wanted to focus on, right? Because everything else was happening, but then you had the thermogenic aspect, right? But you also had this global body awareness that was going on there, where it suggested, the body is much more aware and much more intelligent, right? So it really got into more of the mitochondria as a factory to say, this has to be working on a cellular level, the cellular respiration and so forth, right? Like, it's work. At the end of the day, the body's responding to this because it has to go to work. So if you were to just take like half of these results and post them up on YouTube, right? People would think that you were on some sort of substance, right? Something, and they would want to know what the hell that was. So you gained 35 pounds. Now let's just keep it exactly like, let's say 60, so let's say 31, 32 pounds, right? So you gained 31, 32 pounds of just solid muscle in a month. And in that, you only gained, say 15 only, but I'm just saying, say you only gained 12 to 15 pounds of muscle, which could be called new muscle, but you know what I mean. It's not like you're adopting new muscle cells, but you're increasing the hypertrophic aspect in the cell walls and so forth. And out of this, 10, 12 pounds, right, or 15 to 16 pounds is also replacing the body fat. So your body fat goes down to these levels. I mean, you would have somebody there who undeniably would be like, oh wow, what the fuck's this guy doing, right? And even more so if you've done this before and you're going into really intense training, like that's why I don't diminish on the walks. Like no matter what I do, I'm keeping up on a good 5 mile daily walk. Like I've been walking for over an hour right now, very consistently. So we got over 2 miles in there, and we're going to complete another hour. And that'll get us up to 4.5, 5 miles. So I'm keeping a consistent base of at least 5 miles, but then I'm walking in between sets when I'm training, and I'm also walking a little bit at night. So we're still trying to shoot for maybe 6 or 7 miles, you know. And my thought behind this isn't to make it aerobic, but it is obviously oxidative stress. It's to burn excess fat, to get rid of any of this sort of bogged down waste, right? And to keep my metabolism going, but to also act as a refueling, repair, remodeling focus, thereby exhibiting a higher blood flow, systemic blood flow. And I really do think it helps, as long as I'm taking in all the nutrients. I got the beef liver, I have all my supplements, and I'm just doing this low level walking. I feel like it really adds to my repair. And I think it's pretty obvious that it's happening. But I really have to show an above and beyond miraculous growth process. And when you own the muscle, it's different, it looks different. At first you kind of look bloated, you know, there's hypertrophy that's occurred, but there's a little fat on the outside, there's a lot of water on the outside, right? No matter if you're doing this naturally or not, which we are. And then all of a sudden you have the same circumference arm or greater, but you've been doing it months in, months out, and you own it. Right? It's like definitely there. It's more solidified. Well, that's the type of focus on training that you have to do early on, is that you act as if it's already there. The need for it, the will, must supersede. And when you've done it and you've completed it, when you've experienced it, the statement's gone out. So I backed off the order a little bit. I was ordering like 24 pounds of chicken, and I'm backing off and ordering 16. I'm throwing a little bit more tuna in there, but I upped the carbohydrates. You know, thinking about this and chasing after this hypertrophy. Who knows what my body weight's gonna be? Because I've been huge and buffed, naturally and on PEDs, well over 200 pounds, several times, right? But I would say this is the sort of regalia. This is the sort of kind of a final synthesis sort of thing, where it's like, how many years do you think you have? This is a statement of bringing all my training modalities into one grand effort. This isn't some little deal. This is keeping like, that's what I'm doing right now, is that I'm charting my morning walking session right when I get up. I haven't abated on this. I rarely skip a day of walking. Rarely ever. And I rarely do under 2 hours of walking. And the workouts have become much more frequent. Much more frequent. Chest is sore. Shoulders are sore. Arms are always sore. Legs are sore. not to the point of having to just totally give up. I'm already thinking about the exercises that I would be going through and doing today, which would be the hip swings, hip thrusts. I'm kind of thinking about ways where I could add in resistance to that too, which would be interesting. And I'm going to play with that exercise a little today. I'm going to play with it because I like that plank position. It's such a corrective exercise. I'm going to play with that exercise a little bit today. I'm also thinking about trying to get more lateral frontal plane stability going. I haven't been focusing on that at all. Time under tension, steps to the side for the core, spinal stabilization. Yeah, that'll be an important one. And then more core. And I hate to say it, but I do feel that doing pressing movements and revisiting the chest like almost every day, that ends up becoming a staple to my training. I just keep focusing in on building the chest up from different angles, and I find that chest exercises seem to respond almost like work to a daily routine. And granted, when you're training chest every day, 2 or 3 sets is like a full-on workout, right? But I tend to get more development, more striations, more fascicles are involved. It's very different. Yeah, so I mean, that's what really identifies the GIT, gradual intensity training aspect to what I do, is that I really do believe in that. I take what Mike Mentzer, heavy duty, I take what that, in the high intensity training, right? I take what that means, and it's kind of inverted, right? That's why I call it the back door to fitness, is where I think personally, instead of going, okay, we're going to take what you say and we're going to rest 3 or 4 days, and then we're going to train intensely 1 set, right? For me, I think of things just the opposite. I think very little rest, more intense exercise, doing it every day without fully letting yourself repair, and then you're constantly in this repair cycle, is a more natural way to boost and to constantly get hypertrophic. Now, obviously, if you're doing this with weights, the diminishing aspects would be seen to where you're not able to, say you get up to doing 275 or 325 on the bench press. Using this methodology, you'd soon be using 205, 215, 225 at most, but eventually you'd be in my opinion, you'd be in the same place. You would be able to do a midpoint resistant force of, say, 225 pounds for the same number of reps, right? So I think it's just the difference between training naturally and getting nutrients in. But I think you have to have had a base where and I've trained doing really heavy compound lifts for long periods of time, bulking up. My body has experienced all those different modalities. There's probably nothing that I haven't experienced on some level, where I've walked for 8-10 hours at a time. living on nothing but protein powder. Done that long periods of time, month after month. And I've also bulked up to where I was just going in and at times just doing 3 or 4 or 5 sets and leaving the gym. And then just growing, you know? So are all of those attributes crucial? I think they all add into a sort of repertoire that is supposed to make a grand unified statement and what you're capable of, what the capacity is. And not until you have all the nutrients present and you're focused on a goal, on an aim that involves a little bit of that. And so I feel like the systemic aspect to suspension training is invaluable for that reason. And you really begin to appreciate time under tension. Ooh. Yeah, I feel it. So if I like sat down right now and my rhomboids are holding my head up with less pain, granted, I'm using a newer set of shoes than I typically use. I usually have these stored away. And I'm also using some really good insoles that I spent $20 on last year. Right? I'm trying to overcome. I'm trying to be great. So I just tasted a little salt. That reminded me subconsciously of the rice. So my body's like prompting me, the beast is prompting me on the rice. So there is an interplay, a relationship that we have with the beast, right? Where the beast needs to eat, the beast is hungry. So we're gonna start cooking up a little bit of rice. Wash up that rice. We've got a little over an hour, maybe an hour, 10 hours, 15 minutes like that. Of walking down. This is all part of it. I'm still moving, I'm still talking, still involved. I'm taking an active break because I'm moving, standing. The heart rate was recovering slightly right now, if I were to look at it. I think we're still humming up around, I'd say we're probably humming around 100 beats per minute. Pour out that water. Hopefully we got enough for our rice. Going through a shit ton of water though. Shit ton of water. And almost out of water actually. Wow. Coming in for more water. Gotta order enough water next month. Yeah, we got just enough water to get to today. That kind of sucks. It's good. We gotta be grateful. Gotta be grateful for what we have. I'll just have to let my son know. I hate to be a pain in the ass, but I am. It is. I am. I know. I'm in the way. All dads are in the way, right? Males are in the way. That's what we're told. That's what we're taught. The males are in the way. The males are superfluous, even though everything happened by way and through us. So yeah, we're maxing out the amount of rice. We're maxing out the amount of water. We're not getting stressed out. And we plugged in the phone a little bit, and then we're back into our walk. So typically what I'm doing is I've rinsed off the chicken, put it in the refrigerator, allowing a little bit of thawing to take place. I did notice that it really affected my ability to even do reps yesterday, where I ate the chicken too early. I could barely move. So I think I'm gonna follow that whole Mark Smellybell put up the Rich Pina clip, probably from back in like 2017 or whenever it was, where he was saying that he was on nothing but rice during the day, and then doing 80 or 90 grams of protein at night. And so I think honestly I'm going to be trying that. Shoot, I didn't turn on the rice cooker. So I think that's what I'm going to be trying today. And then what I was doing is I was noticing that let me see if there's any more. Oh, there is more. Yeah, there is some more oatmeal. Brown maple sugar. Damn, are these the old ass ones from Amazon? No, those are good. Yeah. So the past 3 days I've been actually able to focus in on doing. That's awesome. I don't think Colin gives a crap. Yeah, he wasn't eating those. So the past 3 days we've been mixing in oats, and looks like we're going to be doing that again today. I may even eat those oats this morning and focus on the rice prior to training. So what I've been doing is I've been going, I have more energy. The walks are feeling solid. The walks are leaning me out. The walks are allowing water balance to take place. But the issue is that I end up needing and adhering back to a salt, right? Using too much iodized salt. And it seems to be, with the carbohydrates, it seems to be really causing a lot of water bloat and digestive issues. And so I think I'll add on my list and see if I can get some Himalayan style salt, just some higher quality mineral salt, and see if that makes any difference. Because supposedly this type of salt is not good for you. And I don't know how. Like if you were to talk to Mike Mentzer back in the day, it would be like bullshit. It's all chemical reactions. It's all about force. You might as well be eating, Dan Duchaine and Mike Mentzer. If you take those philosophies and you combine them together, you get some really interesting shit where it's just like, just fucking grow, dude. Stop worrying about it. Look at the foods that you have to take in. Take in a minimal amount of that and focus in on getting as much glycogen into your muscle as possible and producing the need to refeed, to refuel. And that will equal hypertrophy. So yeah, I'm not even quite hungry yet. I'm allowing my body to sort of prompt me into it. So I focused on all the nutrients. If I could have my choice, I might be doing like a tablespoon of wheat germ and even like a yeast, a brewer's type yeast right now. And walking and then crapping more. Maybe even like a flax meal, right? Some of the Bob's Red Mill stuff. And then I might have like an Elson Haas, sort of half a piece of apple or a full apple. And then Like this is if I could have anything. Then I say I had some cut up watermelon or some grapes in the refrigerator. I'd eat a handful of those, depending on what I was trying to achieve, how much training I'd done. Down the road, I might have a handful of nuts. I might get more exotic. Instead of just doing almonds, I'd have I'd have a mix of walnuts, almonds, maybe even a little cashews if I needed a little more fat, pecans, right? Just a mixture, sort of a trail mix, but specifically nuts. And if my training was really off the hook, I might add some cacao, some dark chocolate in with that or something like that, right? I think when you're highly fit, you can eat that way. Maybe some coconut slivers, and then I would probably have some tea, some green tea around or soon after. I'd have a very minimal amount of like fully cultured yogurt with wild honey on top. Maybe a few raisins thrown on the top of that, right? And then I would slowly work into replacing the glycogen, for a pre-workout meal. But I mean, the great thing is your body, just like with protein, the most recent studies show that even if you ate 120 grams of protein, your body's going to use every fucking bit of that. I used to think, oh, what happens? Like you're eating 30 grams of protein, right? So this is with protein powder as well. That's why you want to take in casein, right? Casein becomes an invaluable tool, but it's why you might want to do something where you have hydrolyzed whey, small amount, as little as 5 grams available just instantly. Then you have a really nice whey isolate, and then you have a casein to where you could mix that shit together and take in scoop and a half, 2 scoops of that, and you're covered on protein for hours, because that's how your body assimilates it, right? Or you could do something like taking a really basic over-the-counter protein isolate, taking 1 scoop, right? And then following that up with tuna or something like this later on, right? Or even cottage cheese to get in that casein. So it's really about how much time you have to focus on eating and how you're going to be sure that those nutrients get into your body. And then obviously when we talk about nutrients, in my opinion, you want to begin your day by taking in all the nutrients that you need. all the minerals, all the micronutrients, all the nutrients that you need to catalyze the effect. And then obviously through the day, you're doubling up on a lot of this stuff, right? But will it function? Will it work without that? Sure, yeah. In fact, you might find that your best days were when you were the brokest, right? When you really hit those documented or undocumented states where you're like, holy crap, I really did it. How did I do it off that? And it's like, oh, I was young, I was this or that. No, you had the will and the drive. And you got comfortable thinking you were rich, being able to buy this, buy that, buy this fish, buy that fish, get picky, suck in your cheeks, yell at the person behind the deli, think you're something you're not. Live in a world of fantasy, living around Marin or something like that, like living in this artist community, thinking that God somehow capriciously picked you out of all these idiots. When you cheated through the whole thing, man. Tom DeLuire, bullshit artist. I call bullshit. Greasy Strangler needs to pay you a visit, man. Elijah Wood. some naked old man with a huge dick. So you think you're uber mensch, huh? I need more grease on that. Yeah, we're face to face with the ugly truth, right? This sort of archetype, this Jungian archetype, this animus, weird ass, greasy strangler. We're faced with that. Faced with the truth about ourselves, the disgusting truth of what will inevitably become. So yeah, I'm also thinking about shoulders. Really wanting to tackle shoulders and get the shoulder caps down. Now that I'm taking in so much glycogen, I really want to get my shoulder development up. I know that lateral raises are going to do that. I'm getting better stabilization using the suspension training. Lots of taxing movements on the front delts, and then all those rows hitting the rear delts, doing the pull-ups, hitting the teres major, all those rows hitting the rhomboids from the supinated row position, more than adequate. Started to do chin-ups, hitting the lats, right? Earlier this week doing stiff arm push-downs, hitting the lower lats. So, side laterals. I don't think I have much on my chest, but what I might do is do some of those swings. So I'm already thinking oblique core swings with a few push-ups thrown in, just to remind the chest and the triceps who's boss, but not overstated. Do 3 sets on that. That hits the core crazy and allows some transverse rotary motion. Then we have the hip thrusts, right? So there's already half a workout going on there. And then shoulders. I might do all the rest with shoulders, right? And to be quite honest with you, I might just throw in more squats, because I've known people, I've talked to people who have really well developed legs, and they just give their secret out, and it's like, I'll tell you the secret to building up massive legs, man. It's reps. And then when you think about it, you're like, well, yeah, the upper body really likes that force production, but it wants to be pushed. Like when you say it's reps, yeah, it's high reps, but it's also going up and beyond doing sets of failure, you know? Yeah, I might just go back in. So squats, side laterals, hip thrusts, and core, prone core swings, transverse core swings side to side with a few push-ups in there. Yeah, that's a full workout. That's a full workout right there. That'll hit everything. And then I'm thinking, why not? I mean, right now, in the moment, there is no other moment. I got the place to myself. I'm doing it. I'm training. I'm not wasting any time. I've got all the resources today, right now. Maybe do a few sets of like jump squats or push-ups just to fucking annihilate and finish it off, you know. Maybe some overhead presses. Maybe really try to get in 15 good sets there. Yeah, we're just gonna start tinkering around, but we have to come up with a game plan. You know, if you get too stupid, you just end up doing the same exercises every day and fucking yourself up. You know, which, like, as teenagers, people do that, but without a sheer game plan, it's a feudalistic effort. You know, you're cleaving off and giving to the man for no reason. Yeah, so I'm thinking revisiting those squats too, you know. Yeah, I'd like to get an epic like 15, 20 set day today. And the only way that I'm going to be able to do that is if I back off the protein and eat the protein later. So what I found yesterday is even doing protein powder really slows it down. My body, like the complexity of anything but just sugar from I'll see, if these oats really do the trick, because I got 2 packs of them here, so that's plenty of calories. That's like a 500 calorie sugar and complex carbohydrate meal going on there. That's good stuff, and it's organic too. Brown sugar. I'm gonna be ordering a lot of those next month and having a couple packets of oats available. Let's plug this phone in. So we're gonna start in on, my body's just prompting me through saying, let's start in on this, man. Let's start in on doing a little bit of oats. So we're gonna do it. This phone's all fucking up. There we go. All right, so we still got a little bit of coffee in my cup, but I don't care. Kind of adds to the flavor a little bit. So we're making these 2 packs of organic style maple brown sugar packets. Does it have calories in the back? No. It's in the box that was thrown away long ago. We're gonna add a little bit of water in here and throw it in the microwave. Yeah, I'm gonna put that cold water in there. Mix it. I want it to turn out really good. And then we'll throw it in a bowl and just mix it around after we put that in for about a minute and a half. So we got a little minerals, a little coffee in with that. And let's start out with a minute. Let's start out with a good strong minute. We're almost 2 hours in, so I probably haven't walked for maybe 7 minutes out of that. So we're still gonna do two plus hours. Yeah, I'm enjoying this walk. I feel fueled. I feel like I'm in a really good place. My body's telling me what to do. Right now it's telling me, dude, hit that trimethylglycine. So I'm kind of like, my body's trying to view the trimethylglycine as a standalone. Okay, so rather than mess up a cup, I'm just gonna put dog days, right? I'm gonna put 3 or 4 scoops of this. Go 4 scoops of 1,500, right? So we're doing about 5,500, 6,000, somewhere in there. Yeah, let's see. Another minute on that. Yeah, so we're getting close to 6,000. Mix that around. Set that bowl aside. Rinse off that spoon. Check on that rice. That rice is going to be cooking for a while. We got about a minute and a half in here with the oats. It's going on 2 minutes right now. Watching to see if it's going to like boil over. I think we're right at 2 minutes, coming on 5 seconds here. Let's pull that out before it gets too cooked. Oh yeah, that's cooking up perfectly. Yeah, we can even put that in a little longer, so we'll go. That's cooking nicely. That looks good. That looks like really high quality. Wow, what a difference. Yeah, I might have to go organic. On that. That's my order next month. Yeah, I'm thinking that's the way to go. What a difference between the Quaker Oats and that. Like that's night and day. That is night and day. That's about 20 seconds. Was I saying minutes before? Let's see how we're doing. That's about 30 seconds extra. Let's see where we're at. Oh yeah, that's thickened up. Give a little stir on that and maybe even do another 30 seconds. Yep, that's thickened up. That's perfect. That is cooking real nicely. Let's get another 30 seconds on that. Walk across the room a couple of times. Like, I hate it when I'm being taken away from my walk. Not seeing anything bubble over the top. I think that's probably about good right there. Yep, it's bubbling up to the top. That's perfect. Oh yeah. That is cooked perfectly. Perfectly cooked. Now I'm going to pour that into a bowl and just whip that around so it's going to cook, just kind of cook up by itself with that heat. Give it several stirs and then just let it sit there. Put a little water in my cup. Definitely using that. Yeah, don't have a huge amount of water left, but we might not need a huge amount of water today. I'm not feeling super thirsty. Over the last week, we've been doing like some serious water loading. Just with all that new glycogen and the discovery of glycogen in the body getting all excited and then having all this energy and being able to train every single day and then realizing, wow, you can recover every day and you can grow every day. So yeah, it's pretty crazy to look at it and go, dude, you're like 193 pounds and you were on carnivore last month. You're actually growing now. I can feel myself growing. I can feel where I'm growing. I can see my waist actually get building up blocks, building up my core wall, getting really solid, and at the same time in the morning just leaning up. So I'm trying to back off a little bit on the salt. I've been kind of overdoing the salt a little too much. This is really getting me to think about what next week, what my order is going to look like for the month and what kind of food I'm going to need. But what I already realized is that I'm ordering, because I have such a reliance on rice and how cheap rice is, and I'm even going to scout for an even cheaper, not cheaper as far as, but the Mahatma, like the one that I have, I still have 10 or 15 pounds of rice left there. Probably 12 to 15 pounds, yeah, maybe even 15, yeah. So I'd have a 20-pound bag. So I've only taken in at most like probably 5 pounds. In fact, I filled up a 5-pound container of rice. I refilled it, so it was almost exactly 5 pounds. And then the past few days, for half of that time, I've been taking in oats. So I think I'm going to be sticking with oats and rice. I even mixed oats and rice together last night, and it was really nice. And then I was feeling a little weird, like, high blood sugar. And so that's when I realized that I hadn't had my scoop of protein. And that just leveled me out. And then I went to sleep on that. Ooh. This is good. This is good. So we're just about to pass that 2-hour mark on the morning walk. Really helps get the metabolism up, keeps the metabolism going, asserts where the nutrients, what nutrients are needed and where they're going. Reminds me of kind of where I am, where my metabolism is at, how I'm functioning. I'm always reflecting on, could I lift right now? Like, could I work out? If I had to, could I work out? Is it possible? So I threw one little scrap of beef liver away. One little tiny scrap. A little water in that cup. So it's important to reflect on and realize that if you are older, and that if you have trained, you are calling on experience, life experience, physical experience that people haven't had and don't have. That are youngsters. I mean, they do have the epigenetics of their forefathers. They are tapping into that, but they're having to sort of re-realize this karmically through a lifetime. And sometimes it's misinterpreted, right? Especially today. But when you've got in a lifetime, physically, that you've been places, that you've done things, right? That you know what you're doing, your body will rapidly assimilate, especially directed in a combination of different positions, almost like a quantum position, multiple quantum positions, becoming who you are. I mean, there's like this cathartic moment that you don't even necessarily have to be involved in. It's like the universe, the ontology is recognizing you and what you've done. And when you cease to do what you do, you don't get credit for that. But when you realize it, and you bring that and go, look, universe, look what I've done. I killed my demons. I eclipsed my demons. I've done it. I outsmarted it. I outwitted it. I outpowered it. I outdid it over and over again. And when the universe is poised with that and says, I cannot argue against you, that is the truth. Well, what do you want? And it's like everything. Like, where are my riches? Where's my wealth? Where's my land? Where are my precious metals? Where are the things that are going to sustain me in my efforts? I've gotten nothing. And I've given it up for other people that I love who are doing well now and who are also supposed to be flourishing and blossoming from my wealth, from my fruits, right? So you have to realize this constantly and put this into action and say, no, this is not cool. That's not going to be the way it is. This is going to be the way it is. Yeah, I was looking at that chest. I realized that, all the fat around my left pec, and I was thinking, this is bullshit. I know what to do. And I just snapped into it. It all just came to me, and I'm like, build it, man. Don't fuck around, just build it. Focus on building. And the building couldn't be simple enough. You train hard, right? And you replace the glycogen. train as hard as you can, you do it as often as you can, you overcome it, and you replace that glycogen. And you're constantly replenishing it. And you're training with the specific purpose through variable resistance, meaning at times you're really trying to fuel the muscle, other times you're just trying to overcome a force. But either way, I've been hitting for the first time failure on my chest, just off dips where I couldn't do another dip. It feels great. It's like, wow, you hit that. And you can feel your triceps, you can feel your chest. You can feel all the supportive muscles trying to jump in. And I felt the same thing yesterday doing squats, where on the last rep, I could feel my right quad just beginning to give out. It was like, wow, this is good. I'm reaching like the first state of failure where I haven't felt that in a long time. Where like on carnivore, you just can't do anymore, right? But if you rested a few seconds and you went back in, you could, right? But you're so light and you're not necessarily feeling the specific muscle activating, it's more systemic. But you do a pull-up when you're in full-on glycolysis and you can feel every muscle fiber that's being stressed, you know? You know exactly what's happening, and then you see the results of that. All right, so where are we at? We are, yep, just over 2 hours and 2 minutes here. So we're going to eat. We got our couple hours of walking in. 4.5, 5 miles. Okay. We got our base in. Feeling buffed. Feeling the arms. Loving the trimethylglycine. We'll be checking in with you for a workout soon.